Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This is the Out of Class edition with Ben, Janesh, and Matt. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Lifelong Learner. Welcome, Ben. How you doing?
Right, really good. Really good. It's great to catch up again. It's been we've I won't say missed a few episodes, but
We've had a hiatus, mini hiatus.
mini pause, mini hiatus, and so it's good to be back on, mate.
Yeah.
So much to talk about. There's so much water passed under the bridges.
Mate, there's heaps. There's absolute heaps. Right, let's just, we were talking briefly off air. You've just come back from an epic hike, and we talked about, made me actually think you talk about doing hard things, and there's a book actually, Do Hard Things, actually, which is a good read. But mate, tell us about the hike.
It was really good. I took I hike with a group of guys every year. I've talked about that before. And some of them are getting a little older and they're getting more conservative. And so two of the guys were keen to do something a little bit more adventurous. And so they came to me and said, hey, why don't we do something? I said, great. And they said, you're organising it. And so, and there's, I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal, but there's a real kind of responsibility that sort of, and a bit of a weight that came with this thing. Because I went to my running group and said, hey, I'm looking to organise a hike. Who's interested? One or two. And there was three of them. And then they wanted to bring a friend. And before I knew it, there were 14 people.
Wow.
Big group. A lot of bodies, a lot of personalities, a lot of campsites, a lot of tents.
A lot of logistics.
A lot of logistics. Anyway, that got whittled down to 12. And at the last minute, it ended up at being 11. But... And half of them never hiked, didn't own a backpack, didn't own a sleeping bag. And so there was a real journey to getting to the hike. For 3 months there, we had a WhatsApp group and there was a bit of banter. And then there was like, hey, I just bought this and I just got this. And hey, who knows where to get this? And so that was a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, I knew this was going to be, it wasn't going to be that like an easy hike. It was challenging. We were off trail. It was Tassie. It was a bit later in the year, so end of March,
Colder.
Which meant the weather could be unpredictable. So there was a lot of responsibility in making sure everyone was prepared for equipment. Fortunately, everyone's got enough money that they can buy, the next level up gear, be prepared, and so that was cool. What you can't prepare people for is either being physically ready, and most of them were, to be honest, but mentally ready, and mentally ready around how risk averse people are, because this was off trail, which involves just a level of risk. So there's a kind of heightened level of risk because you can't see the trail. Then the terrain was kind of rugged. And then at some points, in fact, a huge chunk of it, the terrain was bouldering,
Just like scrambling bits and pieces.
Crevasses, these black crevasses between these huge boulders and steep descents where, like if you caught your foot and you tripped, you were falling 10 or 12 meters down boulders and you were definitely breaking something. So it was really interesting to see, when the risk went up, how people started to back away and just get slower and slower, more uncertain, more nervy.
How'd you navigate that? I assume you had a certain buffer to get to end of day campsites, and then they said if you're getting slower, you're losing daylight, and especially when people are physically able. I'm curious, how did you manage that?
Really well.
Or did you tell them to saddle up, have a spoon of concrete, and let's go? We need to move, or were you supportive, and then you end up getting head torches out because you missed daylight? How'd you go?
This was one of my lessons. Brom, you can go out, mate. You're distracted. Go and see Mummy. Go on. You're driving me mad. Big roadies and Ridgeback listeners just irritable this morning. He had to go out. So in the bigger the group, the more diverse personalities you get, and the more different roles sort of show up, right? And so because we had such a big group, there were two or three that were helpers. Yeah. Born helpers. In fact, one of them has a career as a professional helper. And I'm not talking about me. And so, when things got tough, the helpers stepped in to help. And the leaders stepped in to lead. And I think the difference, and I'm articulating this with you, and I spoke to my Thrive group yesterday about it. I lead by pulling people along. I'm out front, creating a tension between where I am and where they are, and hope that they pull into that gap. Yeah. Some people, though, the helpers, get behind them, both metaphorically and literally, and push them up. Yeah. Push them along. And so we saw that play out, and it was really interesting. But at one point on the last night, basically, where we second last night, where we camped at the top of Mount Mastiff, which of course was the one night where the sun disappeared, the clouds came over, the wind picked up, and we had this sleet, this blowing, I don't know, 50-kilometer-hour wind. And we woke up in the morning and everything was just frozen hard, like it was minus degrees during the night. Well, it was on that day that, as we're hiking to camp, the other group, and it was one group, but became...
I was going to say, wasn't there one group? Or was there two groups?
There was, a group.
Splintered.
There's a group, and there's A and B.
Okay.
And the B group tended to be the group that was way slower, had some helpers amongst the group to keep people. Mate, they were 2 hours behind. They came in 2 hours later. In fact, more than 2 hours, because we got to the 2 hour mark because I budgeted on maybe 2 hours. And one of the guys came to me and said, Benny, it's getting on.
Do we need to go back and get him?
Yeah. So we were all set up. So we just left all our stuff there and we hiked back and grabbed a couple of backpacks for the couple of people that were struggling and carried their packs back. But yeah, mate, it's tricky. It's tricky. But it wasn't physical. It was mental. The difference in the group was a mental difference, and that we couldn't really prepare people for. So yeah.
Makes you think, right? So you had you didn't have anyone super young in your group, right? And
we had Tom. We had Tom, who's a young guy. He's 24. That's my brother's son, my nephew.
Yeah. And how was he mentally?
Tom's not a super risk-averse guy, but he's young enough to have the flexibility in his system to deal with the changing terrain, metaphorically and literally speaking. He had that youth, the flexibility youth has. Once you cross the 40-year-old mark, you become a little less flexible, and kind of wherever you sit on the spectrum of risk averseness, you don't have, you don't tend to stretch out from that.
Well, but we've talked earlier on about the older generation having more resilience, right, and being able to push through. And in this case, not the case. Do you think just in their life and experience, they just haven't had to do very hard things to push them mentally to this point, or what do you think? What is hard things?
Yeah, I think there's hard things that are hard to do, and there's things that are risky. So, if someone had only ever run a 5K and you gave them a marathon to do, that'd be a hard thing. It'd be a hard thing, but it's not risky.
Yeah, okay, yep, I hear.
Now, they might get some voices, if I keep running, I'm going to die. If I keep running, I'll, whatever. There could be some fear stuff that comes up for them on that, but I wouldn't call it risky. And I think the challenge is, though, this is what's come up for me. This is, I think, interesting, is that some people are super risk averse. And
Mm-hmm.
so therefore they pull back and want to move away from things that feel risky. And there's others that are not risk averse. What is not risk averse? Risky.
Risky.
Risky. The risky people. Um, the risky people like me who
Get pulled towards
pull
it.
away and move away from things that are boring, that don't have the risk. I shouldn't say boring, that don't have risk involved.
Don't have like enough uncertainty, right?
Yeah, mate, I'm just not interested at all. Like, I just couldn't. I don't want to waste my time doing that, and so I move away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just as tough for someone that has a high risk tolerance. That would be what that is.
Yeah, because there's always you need that the consistent sense of variety, right? Because after doing something that is quote unquote risky for a period of time, doesn't become risky anymore. Like risky, like I think risk is subjective, right? Like obviously you have a risk matrix and insurance and all that, blah blah blah. But each person risk is subjective, and after a certain bit, something that may be risky is not risky anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like now for me at heights, like I'm not, it doesn't feel risky anymore because I'm like, oh look, yep, the gear's on, it's sorted. And someone said to me, was it on Monday? Was like, how are you not scared on doing that? And I'm like, oh, I've done it lots of times, and it's just like climbing a playground ladder. Like it's not. I mean, it's sorted, like it is what it is. It might be more physical demanding than actual mentally risky, but once upon a time I would go, oh no, I'm kind of trembling and it's risky, but because how do you continue to fuel that risk appetite? Because one thing that was risky will no longer be risky.
Right. This is something that I'm actually a little challenged with right now coming back from this hike, because for everyone they said it was the most difficult thing they've ever done. Everyone said it's the hardest, and the experienced hikers said the most amazing hike they've ever done and the most difficult. And I want next year to be even more. Like, I want it to be, and I'm struggling. Like, so how do I make next year next level for me if I'm going to organize it?
You would have to
And
do 2 hikes, mate.
yeah, well, I'm already doing two,
Yeah,
right?
you might have to do another one. Like, I don't know if you can, hearing what you're saying, I don't know if a bigger step from this year's one would be great for the group.
Mm.
It,
Well,
it just shatter the group.
the solution is that I've got to work on. Unfortunately, we've done Walls of Jerusalem before, but there are some hikes where you hike in, set up base camp, and then do day hikes out of that. And so that may be, I've got to kind of work on that if I take responsibility for this, is that we hike to a location. Then those that choose can go and do a day hike to different locations.
I would, yeah. I've always thought of it. I haven't really pulled the trigger on it. I'll be open to it when the season's turn again this year. A go fast hike.
We talked about that.
Yeah, like just a 4 day, and you're covering terrain, and you're like literally like a sleeping bag in a lean-to, and that is it. And you're like, all right, let's go, and you're covering like maybe for the day like 20k minimums, right? And seeing some amazing parts of some country. But yeah, I want to do one of them where you go, you know what, that's all we got. There's some water stops and that's it, right? And it's just like nothing big, nothing rugged, like in terms of like carrying wise, and go, we've got that for 4 days.
Mate, I'd be all over that. Yeah, I think that would be. I think there's that next level that needs to happen, and maybe not. It's not in Australia too, man. If so, if we like in Asia, close by. That's what we love about Tassie, is you're an hour flight. The airports are easy, and you're in like some of the most amazing, pristine country in the world to hike in. It's truly stunning, and the weather conditions can be like we talked about. In fact, one of the guys put a post up in our WhatsApp group yesterday. It's snowing where we hiked. It's snowing. It
Well, were
snowed.
people prepared for that sort of weather?
Yeah, they had the gear.
Yep.
They had the gear to be prepared for that. Um, I made sure that everyone had the equipment.
Yep.
Again, the mental component is something else. But yeah, mate, it was really interesting and interesting to see the diversity. Some of my take homes, particularly I guess for our listeners, is one of the ones was the difference between journey and destination. There are some people that are journey, take lots of photos on the way, stop, admire the views. And I did a bit of that, but for me, I'm destination. No one wrong, all good. There's destination people and there's journey people. Just like there's people that want to lead from the front and there's people that want to help from the back. So perfect.
Yeah, I do see that with you. Even when you go to set up camp, you're like hustle, hustle, hustle. And I'm like, I'm here. I'm like, I'm going to open a drink. I'm going to make my cocktail halfway through. Yeah, I do see that actually.
So there's that. And then probably the big thing was perspective. And that is, I took a shot because Group A was, a fair ways ahead. And so we had to hike down this crazy, sometimes we were hiking at 1 kilometer an hour because it was so up and down, right? Anyway, you had to hike down this huge boulder mountain, down to the valley in the bottom, and then hike back up the next bouldered mountain, right? And so I'm up the next bouldered mountain, looking back across, and I go, "Oh my God, that's the guys!"
And then you have to
That's
go
the other
down.
guy. And they're tiny little, just because one of them had a fluoro orange, one had a fluoro yellow thing on it. We could see these tiny fluoro dots on the mountain, and it just put our size in perspective because when you're there with you looking at the ground, like you look as big as you normally do, but looking across and seeing these tiny specks on this mountain that I've just gone down created some perspective around how important we really are amongst these 100 million-year-old rocks in my little mini 50 years that I've been around, and just how small my life is in time terms, and just how small I am in the big picture. Doesn't mean I'm not important and I don't matter, but just putting a perspective on that. And the second perspective was the fact that, we're away for 5-6 days. I used 1 spoon, 1 cup, and 1 bowl. Rinsed, sort of, between eating. By the end, yes, the cup's got this coffee muck kind of around the top, and the bowls started to get layers. Spoons got all sorts of different food groups.
Yeah.
But it was a perspective on how simply you can live and then how complexly we live. Like if this cup will go in the dishwasher, and here's the cup that I used this morning. I'm not using that cup again. And like, I don't know about you, but you get, sometimes you get a spoon out of the dishwasher and it's clean, except it's got a little bit of something that's still just stuck to it. You're not using that, right? You're putting that back in the dishwasher.
Why does environments change that though? Like, yeah, I'm similar. And then next week we head away and I'm like, we're not going anywhere. I don't need to bring A, B, and C because we're not going anywhere fancy. We don't need that. But at the same time, I do like the fancy too. So why do you think environments change that? Because we're still the same person, but presenting a different version of ourselves. Why do environments change that? And like outside looking in, it may look inauthentic.
I think that's what makes humans amazing is we are, we have the ability to change with environment, as do many species, right? But we change our performance. I often talk about, environment dictates or supports performance. And I think we change. And that's what I think is amazing. People ask me about the weather. I said the weather was amazing. And they go, really? Had sun the whole time? I go, no, we had one night where it was like blowing, But that's what made it amazing. It's the contrast. It's the difference. And I think that's eating out of with one spoon and one cup, one bowl for a week is what makes getting a fresh cup out of the dishwasher amazing. And then getting a fresh cup out of the dishwasher every day makes, drinking out of the one cup and the one spoon amazing. I think it's that contrast that's really powerful. And, I think we've talked about this before, and I'm training I've got a new team member at the practice, and, I was explaining that you can't be monotone. You can't be you can't flatline when you speak.
Yeah.
It's boring.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give people contrast and context around, what you're saying. So if you watch any great movie, I just finished White Lotus. Listeners, I'm sorry, but do yourself a favor. It's really good. Have you watched White Lotus?
No, I haven't.
TV series, right? This is the third season. They're all different. They kind of just follow on a little bit. It's based on a luxury hotel called White Lotus. Anyway, mate, just in the last season, this this couple, like, they've kind of there's been a bit of something and they come together and it's joy and, their happiness and they're in love and they're looking at each other and he says to her, I'm going to be with you forever. And she goes, oh my God, really? Because she was always into him and, and you're just there and she's tearing up and I'm on the couch and I'm tearing up and it's just this beautiful scene. And if you haven't watched it and you want to know what happens,
Don't tell
know
them.
what happens. Just put your fingers in your ears for the next 15 seconds because the end of the season, they both get shot and killed. And it's like the contrast, right? The joy and the tears and then the shock of them getting killed, right? That's what made the TV series amazing. And so when we speak, we've got to speak with contrast, which you and I, we do really well because we speak all the time. We speak to groups. We speak publicly. I think we do it pretty well, right? But that's what makes life epic. Life's got contrast. When there's this roller coaster between emotions, that's what makes a sunny day amazing when we've got a cold day.
But you can't have. I don't think
when they've got a bad day.
You can't have one without the contrast, though. I don't think you can. Like, how would you know? Like, how would you know if you were, say, if you were happy, quote unquote, happy all the time, right? Would you truly know what happy is? Or would you be just monotone? Right? Like I was talking to a few years back to someone saying that like in his household, they just talk about just all the good, right? And he's like, I've just learned I need to openly talk about the bad as well because I think there's maybe were you there when I think it was me, you, Mark, and maybe Ryan were talking about the shadow. And going, look, if you always talk about the good, the bad may still happen, but no, it's really kind of shunned and there's no real talk about it or the darkness. And it's like, well, you can't have light without darkness. You can't have dark without lightness, right? That contrast is what makes the other thing a thing. And if you were happy all the time and no like dip or sway, that would be monotone. The equivalent of monotone because it's the same thing. You're not there's not levels of happiness. Say if you're just on a standard 6 out of 10 happiness and you're like, all right, this is good. You're like, well, do you want that? Don't you want like epic levels of joy? But epic levels of joy also come with I think hardship, right? You have more appreciation for I worked really hard on that or I went through a lot of pain or whatever to get that joy. That joy is actually... That's what makes that really hard moment makes that joy, right? That really cold night makes that hot cup of coffee when you finish the hike epic. But if you didn't have if it wasn't cold that night, the next day, if you're having a warm drink, it just doesn't mean anything.
What are you seeing in kids, in your own kids, because you've got younger kids And in the kids that you see come through the summit that have grown up in the last 5 years with social media being so dominant, and in my opinion, social media only painting, giving us one picture, which is that life is full of bliss. Do you think that there's a challenge for kids and that they may have an expectation? I want to put words in your mouth, but I kind of, the only way I can articulate the question, that there's an expectation that life is always amazing and that when it's not, something is wrong. Something's wrong with them. Something's wrong with their circumstances when you have a bad day, because it seems the world is only ever having good days. Is there an issue with that, you think, in modern society?
Yeah, I think, and also people aren't exposed to the bad, or quote unquote the putting in the work, I don't think. And when they do, there's a generation that kicks up a stink, throws their hands in the air, and I think 5 years, 10 years ago, no one would bat an eyelid, right, and go, no, this is what you need to do, and then wait till the tantrum's finished, and then they go, okay, shit, I'll do it. Now, people are pandering to it. So when you don't pander to it, it gets louder. They're so more confused. They're like, what do you mean we have to do that? I'm like, yeah, like that's what comes with it. And you get the comparison, oh, no one else needs to do that. Why am I doing this? All that. I'm like, because that's what it takes. Quote unquote example. So it was Sarah's birthday on the weekend, and we came back after her birthday party, and the house looked like kind of a bomb hit it. And I'm going, all right. She's like, oh, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you need to clean up. This was all for you. Like, this is the price. Oh, I'm really tired, Dad. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. But we had an epic 2 days away. It's Mum and Dad's time now to sit down. You're up. And it was like, she did it, and she did a really good job of it, but it was not without any resistance. It was like oh, no, I don't want to do the work. No, I don't want it. No. Oh, no one else would have to do this, Dad. I'm like, yeah, you're right, but I don't care. But I think, yeah, it is more and more, and I see it with just in different arenas where people, you ask them to do the work, and they're like, oh, this sucks. And I'm like, well, hold on. It's going to be the reason why they don't connect the dots of do this now and it'll be easier later, right? They're like, why do I have to do this now? They're very much, don't get me wrong, they're very present, which is a good thing, but there's like, why are we in trouble? And I'm like, you're not in trouble. This is just if you want to do great, you got to do the work. But they don't. It's interesting. They don't see that and they think the work is work's a punishment, or that hard work's punishment, or if a struggle's not good. Nah, this must be easy, Ben. This needs to be easy. If it's not easy, then it's not for me. Yeah, which is interesting, actually.
Yeah. So how do we do better at that? How do we? I mean, I know this. One of the things the summit does, obviously, is it puts kids in positions where there is a level of risk and there's a level of hardness. You know, what is it called? The mud run, the
monster run.
Yeah,
but I think it's just.
I just love that, because what you guys often do is, they do this awful monster run, which is hard, and you get dirty and you get grazed, and it's just not pleasant. And then when you finish, like, there's this debrief, like, well, great job, guys. So we're going to do it again. It's like, no. And then you do it again, right? And so the summit does really well at having people experience hard things. But in life, we have a life out there where everyone's a winner. Everything's padded. Everything's comfortable. I grew up in a house, where you'd got up in the morning and the house was cold. There was no heater. We had a Canara, one of those pop bellies.
Yeah.
And, most mornings Dad was always up early and he'd lit it, but I was an early bird, so I'd get up and it had only just been lit, right? And so you'd stand on the hearth with your back against it, waiting for it to kind of heat up. And just like, kids don't experience that. They wake up into a heated house now. they get driven to school, and our kids are amazing, but are we protecting them too much? And are we painting, as you said, only the positive picture, only the good picture? That uh, as a as a I don't know, as the system that raises our children is protecting our kids from seeing the other side, not the side that's the dark side that comes through on TV, etc., but the real dark
Reality.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah, reality.
I think now, so I think there'll be a bit of a correction with, like, there's no more labor shortage, right? A few years back, during COVID, post-COVID, there was labor shortage, right? Where you could throw your sand toys out of the sandbox, and employers would be like, "Yep, okay, yep, we'll say that." But now in terms of that market, like, reality is going to hit. I think where they're like, it's super competitive to land jobs. Employers don't need to pander to these things and go, and they go, "No, this is the way it's going to be." And I think there's going to be a bit of a rude awakening. I think, which in my opinion, I think it's good. I think it's needed because the world doesn't work that way, right? And I think due to circumstances, we've allowed parts of it. But like, it only works for like a certain season, right? So school, maybe uni, higher education, maybe early 20s, and then after that, it's like, oh fuck, I need to work for that. I need to actually put time and effort and relationships to make that connection. But it's also, and then at times it feels a little bit late for people. They're like, oh, they're learning some stuff late 20s, if that. Some people are going, oh, I have to do this. Doesn't come easy, right? So yeah, I think hopefully we'll have a bit of a correction, but it's also, I think you'll see a difference when that generation are in their 30s. There'll be a bigger gap of demographics, socio, financial. I think there'll be a bigger gap of the people that did do the hard things, that are okay doing the hard things, compared to the ones that go, I want it handed to me, because they'll stop getting handed to them.
Well, it's interesting. It's going to be such interesting times ahead, particularly with AI and the shifts we're seeing in that. And um, your kids are still young enough that they'll be involved, and my kids are all adults now. But I've got a grandson, right, that's 6 weeks or so old, and there's another 5 years till he starts to kind of stretch a little bit into the environment. At the age of 5, they start to kind of interact and have opinions, and I just, it's like, wow, what's the world going to be like in 5 years?
In 5 years, right?
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. And what would being a child be like in 5 years, right? And things are moving so quick now. You just, like, you can have a guess, but like, none of us will be right. So, yeah.
It's good, man. And I'm conscious of time, but for you, I've had the hike. What have you done in the last month? It's kind of been a bit of a hard thing.
Oh, last month.
Maybe a physically hard, mentally hard. What's
Yeah, I thought it was going to be physically hard, but it wasn't. It wasn't as hard as I thought, in terms of, like, my body wise. Was probably the 27K at Warburton on, like, next to zero training. Wasn't as hard. I thought going into it would be harder, but the other hard thing was like not pandering to a large client, where they're like, we're at the renewal stage, and it was like it took every inch of, like, I don't know, like, character, or I don't know what do you call it, but just probably stubbornness as well. And then the moment we go, oh fuck, was that the right decision or not? where I was like, oh, nah. They like wanted us to do something that wasn't really what we wanted to do, but the financial goal was there. And I was like, oh, nah, sorry. No. And then I walked out going, what the fuck? And yeah, probably ate me for a week. And that was hard. That was mentally hard. Not physically, but mentally, like, oh, really? And then you go through your head, oh, could I have done that? Could I? And then after, we're 3 weeks now. It was like, okay, we're good and made peace of it. But that was hard. That was a different hard where you're like, oh, what do you do there? So, yeah. But yeah, those two would probably be the thing now. Yeah. What would be your takeaways, mate, from this conversation?
Well, it's kind of from this conversation, but it's also from a conversation I had with AI this morning. And I was talking about AI and just how it's going to accelerate and change. And AI said back to me, they said, what are your concerns? What are you worried about, Ben? It's getting quite good. This is one of those AI models that's all very language based. So it actually speaks to you, and it speaks to you just like a human would talk to you. There's no roboticness. There's a pause and there's breath. And So Ben, what are you like? What are you thinking? Like, what are you worried about? Is he worried? Have you got?
So what prompted it to ask you that question?
Oh, because I asked, where does it get its AI? Where does it get its intelligence from? Yeah. Where's its database? Whether it's gathering its wisdom, and let one lead to another. And he said, what are you around? I go, mate, I'm actually not worried, because here's my takeaway, is that whenever there's change and we've got big change happening, there's always opportunity in change. There's always opportunity. That it's an opportunity for just something new to come into your life, for something different to happen, to explore and experience different things. And again, maybe that's because I'm a little bit more not risk averse. Whatever we decided the thing was. That risky, I see that risky. I'm a bit more risky. But I just think there's some real opportunities that come from change, and we're going to have lots of change. So my take home is, like, just embrace the change that's coming. If you're one of the oldies that's kind of a bit funny about it, then maybe just see that in this change there's going to be some real opportunities. And if you're one of the youngies, then I guess have an awareness that there's plenty of opportunities in the change, and you can do some really cool stuff with that. And to be at the front of what, not the queue, but to be on the front foot and see the opportunities rather than just follow blindly. So yeah, I think my take home is plenty of change coming. Lean in, do the hard stuff, be on the front foot, and embrace that with the change there's opportunity. What about you, man?
I would say challenge yourself a little bit more and do the things a little bit outside of your comfort zone. It might be within your comfort zone, but go like just stretch a little bit. And it might be within your realm. It might be within your with health or fitness, or with business or family, or whatever. I think just stretch a little bit, because even if it's you don't enjoy it, you're going to learn something either about yourself or about the thing. I think people don't do it enough, and they don't stretch. It's like I say, like a little kid learning to walk, right? Like when the first time they fall, they don't go, okay, I'm done, I'm just going to crawl. They go, I'm going to get back up and try again. And it's like for them falling, like they're so small, that's massive for them, right? From them falling from that height to the ground, but they get up again. And I think it's, try something and stretch something. And Yeah, do some of the hard things because it gives you a different frame of reference of what you're capable of.
Nice, mate. Hey, it was really good to catch up.
Mate, likewise.
Really, really cool. Have an amazing rest of the day today.
Will do. Will do.
Look forward to recording again super soon.
Awesome. Thanks again, listeners. Have a good one.
See you, mate.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Lifelong Learner. If you like this episode and want to know more and hear other episodes, head over to lifelonglearnerpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter where you'll be the first to know when new podcast episodes come out. And if you want to say hello, tell us a joke or ask us a question, send us an email at hello@lifelonglearnerpodcast.com. Thanks again.